worked on very interesting projects. I've worked on projects in Dubai, for instance, where they were building apartments and they needed that information to be transformed from like BEAM from an engineering point of view. But how do we make it spatial? That's why you have Elon Musk flying all these Wi-Fi satellites or Starlink into space, because even in the most remote areas, you deserve access to information. When you do something that you love, you never have to work a day in your life.
True.
And I don't feel like I'm working.
Ladies and gentlemen, guys and girls, we back yet again with another installment of WARMKOP. It's your boy Tepper from there, and this is still Each One Teach One. Look, today we have a special guest in the building, and he goes by the name of Mutakusi Ragimana, aka Bash, aka Bash, Mr. Bash. How are you, sir?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm all good. I must thank you for your time today, for making it through, and I am really looking forward to our conversation today. I look forward to just getting to learn a bit more about what you do in your craft. So just so we let the viewers be aware, like, please tell me, what exactly do you do? Are you a weatherman? Are you a geologist? Exactly what is spatial data analysis? What is that?
To be honest, spatial data is everywhere. It's in our everyday lives. And I'm going to give you a simple example. I was coming here and I had to rely on Waze to get a location of where I'm going, what you send me on WhatsApp. And that is the core of what spatial data is. It's just the science of knowing where things are. Could be geology, could be in engineering, could be anything. It's just a matter of like, how do we bring real world situations and process them and make it more feasible for us to make efficient decisions, and using algorithms, using any computers essentially to make more efficient decisions in anything. So we apply spatial data everywhere in every industry, and without even knowing. That's what spatial data is. It's just how do we bring real world events and then process that and make more efficient decisions based on real world locations. It's a matter of like, it's the science of knowing where things are. That's the core of what spatial data is. Location X and Y. Where are you on Earth? Where are you positioned? What is where? That's just how we think as spatial data analysts.
We recently had like those terrible floods that happened in KZN.
A
lot of people were displaced and houses were underwater. There was a lot of like calamity. And I wanted to ask, in that instance, could spatial data, not spatial, I'm saying it wrong, spatial data. Could spatial data have helped in that situation?
It actually helped. It's not a matter of like if it did help, it's a matter of like, how did it help? Because I remember that time in 2022 when we had the floods in Durban, I was working for a company. They are like the gods of GIS, or Geographical Information System, which is the field that I'm in. Bringing geography to computers or applying geography in a computer science methodology. So we were tasked with the task of trying to understand the extent of the floods and the aftermath in terms of like, how do we bring in relief, insurance, how could they see if you're claiming from insurance? Insurance has to know like, okay, the building has been damaged. And they can't just take your word as face value. They need to understand, they need to have like data. So we tasked like satellites from a company called Planet. They do Earth observation, which is remote sensing of like satellites coming down and understanding what happened in an instance. The revisit time is daily, you see? So the data comes in more frequently. So from that, we were able to observe which areas were damaged, were underwater, where are the areas that are most affected, which roads are damaged, which buildings are damaged, which houses are damaged. And then from there, you're able to create a viewer of understanding what happened before and after. Like you're able to like compare before the flood and after the flood. So at the end of the day, it's just a matter, like the core of what we do is how do we understand real life situations, as in like the KZN flood, using different techniques. For this example, I'm talking about remote sensing, which is a form of spatial data because we're trying to understand real world situations. So there's a lot of things that we do that are linked to real world events, but are very much dependent on technologies. As I'm saying in this instance, it could be a drone that flew over the accident, the incident in Durban, or it could be a satellite in this instance, where we had to create viewers and try to understand the damage that the flood caused. And then from there, people are maybe able to make informed decisions, whether it's the people that are being relief, insurance companies, the government, in terms of like which people are the most affected, maybe in the townships, which roads are damaged. So you are able to have a holistic view.
Yeah, it gives you a full view, like what's happening. Yeah. So you mentioned like various technologies. So you mentioned, or rather, let me put it this way. You mentioned that there's a company called Remote called Planet, that helped with like the remote sensing for the actual damage on the ground. So that's a private company.
Yeah.
So then what is the relation between government and private companies in making sure you execute these things or execute your role more efficiently?
To be honest, when it comes to that, it's a very complicated question because it needs funding and it needs a lot of science. You can understand putting a satellite into space requires a lot of maths. It requires expertise. That's why in the current instances we rely on international governments, like international organizations like NASA or ESA, because they have been running like Earth observation or remote sensing satellites for over 50 years, for instance, in NASA. And then now we have other telescopes that are coming in from, or satellite actually, if I mean to say, from the European Space Agency. But those are public entities, you know, and they have a mandate to give us data like globally, but their core function will be to protect their countries. So the data will still be theirs. So and then this is where the private companies come in. Like, you know, you find Planet, you find Mexa, you find Spot, which are other Earth observation companies that are also deploying their own satellites. And the data is much more finer. It's good data, but you have to pay for it because obviously it's private companies.
Okay, yeah.
So a country like South Africa, we are still, or Africa in general, we do have a space agency in South Africa.
Really?
We do. It's called SANSA. They funded my master's to some degree and also my honors degree in space Earth observation. But the limitations there is that, like, obviously the expertise and funding. How do you, as an individual, come with ideas to lobby for government to put a satellite into space for Earth observation? The science behind that. You can't rely on America or Europe, but they're not going to give you their technology. So it's a very it's an important question to ask, but it's a very complicated question to solve. It's a complicated thing to solve because we need expertise in the country. We need our own technologies to do this. So that's why a lot of the time we have to rely on paying a company like Planet that has mastered the art of, okay, how do we revisit an area like globally every single day, and be able to retrieve that data. Because imagine if the flood happened today and you're only going to observe it 5 days after. You've lost the plot. You don't have timely data. Your spatial temporal resolution is very low, which is like trying to understand things as they happen. You know, instead of like the aftermath. So yeah.
You mentioned there are various things that you do in spatial like analysis. Like, can you maybe give us like facets of it? Like, okay, there's like being able to predict what the weather's going to be. Being able to predict like calamities before they happen. Like, what parts or what things like do you do in spatial remote sensing? Like, what roles are there?
What roles are there?
Yes.
I feel like the core.
Just want to unpack it a bit more. Just want to unpack it a bit more.
The core of what we do, as I did mention previously, is just to understand. It's when it comes to spatial data analysis or remote sensing, it's just the core of it is just to understand where things are happening on the Earth's surface. You know, for example, Uber. That is a very good example of spatial data coming into fruition and making a business out of it, because at the end of the day, you are optimizing an algorithm of understanding, okay, how many drivers are in an area? How? You see those questions. That's how you think spatially. Okay, how many drivers are in an area? Where are you as the customer? Your X and Y, those are coordinates. And then you call a driver, and then now it the algorithm will go into understanding how how much price it sets a price for you depending on where you're going, and then you get into the car and then the driver will ask you where you're going. Now you're depending on satellites, now you're depending on GPS. Okay, how are we gonna get there? So it's everywhere. Like spatial data is everywhere. Like I think we think geographically without even realizing that. We think as human beings we utilize a lot of spatial data every single day without even realizing.
Just as a person.
As a person, you try to orientate yourself every single day and you position yourself on the Earth's surface, whether it's a job, you're driving to work, whether you're going to see your partner, whether it's everywhere, or what you're dressed like today, the weather. There's satellites that are designed to track the weather, and you go on your phone and you check, okay, today is 20 degrees. I have to dress like this. So you make decisions based on remote sensing data every single day.
Thank you for unpacking it that way. This is a very dense topic, but one thing I love is I'm seeing so much passion come from you and just your intrinsic and innate sense of understanding. How did you get into this? Where did the interest come to actually go into this field?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think there was a path laid out for me, but I've always been a geographical person. I've always loved geography, even ever since I was young. And I think this passion just comes from my mother. She was a teacher, and she would come back with atlases, like different type of atlases. I don't know if you've ever opened it.
Atlas, like it's a book.
With maps,
locations,
with
maps.
So that just fueled the passion for me to just try to understand and be an explorer and understanding where things are. And when I was in high school, I used to love geography. I used to love geography, and I knew that I was gonna get a distinction every time I had an exam or test. I just love geography, and from there, I just love the natural environment. I don't think it was only geography, life sciences, and then even when I went to varsity, I didn't know that I was going to end up in GIS or remote sensing. I registered for a degree in geology and geography. You see, and after 2 years, I realized that actually this is not what I want. I didn't want the geology part of it. Something that I thought I wanted. And I think that question is very hard to unpack for me because there's other things that I wanted to do. I studied environmental sciences, geography, and botany. That was my degree. But what was core for me was just to understand or position myself to change. Understanding that life changes. If I just focused on environmental sciences, it was not gonna benefit me in the long run because there were no jobs in that field. It was just a matter of finding a niche. And without even knowing it, I ended up doing my honors in GIS and remote sensing at Wits after my undergrad, which I did in the Nelson Mandela University.
Oh, nice.
So from there, I was unemployed for a year, I think. And then during that time, I was trying to get into a master's program at Wits. Didn't work out. I started it, but I didn't finish it. And then I got a job in a company. I was applying everywhere. I was applying at banks. I was applying at environmental companies. I was just trying to utilize my degree as best as I could, every single way, going to local NGOs everywhere. I was just trying to send my CV everywhere because it's the life requires you to not be comfortable with just looking at things from one perspective. And that's when I ended up going for a training at this company that I'm telling you about. That is basically the gods of GIS. They are a private company, but they have developed GIS or computer-based geography in a very beautiful way. They have the technology, they have the science and the expertise to carry out this thing. So I got a training there for a week. I remember. Did their basic course. And then after the week, there was a short interview that we did.
Just after your honors, your master's period.
It was my master's honors, my master's trying to get a job period in my life. And then from there, they called me for a small interview. Very, very fun. And then a few weeks later, I was still at university this time doing my master's that I ended up registering from, by the way. And then, yeah, they ended up taking me in as an intern. And then that's where I got to see the industry value of spatial data.
Yeah.
And everywhere, because like even when I was still in university, we were using their softwares. Even now, where I'm working, I'm not even working for that company anymore. We utilize the same technology. We utilize their expertise, everything that we use. Their softwares are based on that company. They are the ones that provide the softwares. So I think I got very lucky in that sense of being drowned in when I just started working, being drowned in GIS or in remote sensing or in spatial data. I was just thrown into the deep end. And yeah, since then I just fell in love more with this field. And that's how I'm able to sit down with you now and just try to make you understand that, like, when you think about spatial data or when you think about remote sensing, it's everywhere. And it's just the science. They even call it like the science of where, like where, like
the science of where.
The science of where.
I love that.
Yeah, just understanding where things are. Give me your X and your Y, like your coordinates.
Yes.
And then from there, that's when we can make decisions. For example, we talk about crime in the country. We talk about people being unemployed, but where are they? Where is crime happening? Where are the spots that have the most hijackings? Where are the spots? Which areas in the country have the most poor people?
Yes.
For example, we were.
That's tracker, right?
Yeah, it was just tracking. You're trying to understand where things are on the real world. Okay, we'll be like, okay, this is a hotspot. How is it a hotspot? Because there's data that is linked to the location. For example, we just came out from an election. Everyone was looking at a map,
So that's spatial data.
That's spatial data, like trying to understand, okay, EFF is winning in this ward. DA is winning in this ward. DA is trying to win the Western Cape, but there's the Patriotic Alliance. There's the ANC that's trying to dive into that field. Okay, so now you understand your demographic, which is data, and you understand the spatial aspect of it. Okay, there's this demographic. There's majority Black people in this area. They are prone to vote for ANC. Let's lobby them more. Let's invest our resources there.
Let's market. Let's get ourselves out there.
So it's just a matter of like the core of GIS or the field that I'm in is just how do we make informed decisions based on data and locational data? How do we manipulate data to a point of making informed decisions location-wise? As I'm saying, like if we go back to the Durban floods, now you understand, okay, the most damage is in Balitu, for instance. Let's allocate more resources to that area.
Yes.
You are able to go into situations with much more prior knowledge, or much more confidence that, okay, the reason why we are allocating like relief to this area is because they don't have the shops are closed. They don't have shops anymore. Like, or the reason why insurance company is approving your claim is because they went to a viewer and be like, okay, damn, the garage is gone in this location. So
I have a question.
Crazy. It's crazy the things that we do.
So basically you get all this data and then you then decide who do we sell this data to? Or do you keep this data for yourself? It feels like somebody needs this data. So do you sell it? Is there subscriptions? Like, how do you mold it and it being useful to whoever that needs it?
It depends. It depends. I think data has become more valuable than gold or diamond or oil these days, because data is everywhere, and with data you're able to make decisions. But we don't have access to all the data. There's data that is free and data that you have to acquire and you have to pay for it, And where I'm at right now in the industry, I work for an engineering consulting company. You can imagine I am surrounded with engineers. Like, I'm surrounded with engineers doing BIM stuff, doing allocating a lot of their efforts into designing models, like building a bridge, mining, consulting. It's everything. But all of those things have to be linked to real world coordinates and X and Y. We need to understand, okay, if you're designing a building for Mall of Africa or whatever, for example, if that's a mall, it has to be put into the ground, and that needs an X and a Y. So there is data available. The South African government has a lot of like entities that are in place to provide spatial data.
Yeah.
But there's also private players as well. Like, for instance, I'm going to give you an example. I once had an interview with a advertising company, a global advertising company.
Yeah.
They are everywhere in malls, even in the billboards that you see everywhere. So they were trying to understand, okay, they asked me a question during the interview. They're like, okay, we have a client, McDonald's. They're trying to open a franchise somewhere. How would you go about solving that suitability question for us, you know? And that requires you to take data from, for instance, okay, who owns the land where you're going to, and that comes from the government, the cadastre, that said, okay, this is Ward 24, who owns this data? We always talk about land, but we don't realize that like every part of the country, it's already sliced. We all say like we want the land back or whatever, but every part of the world is, but when we talk about it's gone. But so yeah, it's a matter of like, okay, we're getting, okay, who owns the land? How many people are in that area? What is their economic stance? Like, let's talk about now like their financial position, how like the median household income, how many people are in the region, the demographic. And then you are able to, okay, also it moves from that as well. So we are able to make decisions, okay, let's put a McDonald's in this location because there's kids next to
that space.
Into that space. How many kids are in that area? Age between 8 and 9 and 20. Like we were able to like break down data like that, okay.
To that
precise
detail, that level of detail.
Of, okay, there's a lot of kids in this area. Let's put a McDonald's there. Is it accessible? Let's talk about the road infrastructure. Is it like all those things? Is it next to another McDonald's to avoid
clash of interest?
Cannibalism of the business. So you there's a lot of questions that can be answered by looking at spatial data.
How often do you actually update that information? So how often are people on the ground to make sure the information stays true to what is the current blue and terrain at that time?
I think that's what we're trying to get to. That's why we have now remote sensing of trying to just, the core of remote sensing is that like how can we observe things as they're happening without having
that's not the satellites.
Without having to go into the field and okay, let's measure how big this area is. We're trying to get as precise as possible. So it's very hard to answer that question in terms of like understanding how much we update them, because we're trying to measure things as they happen. We're trying to get as updated information as possible, but you should understand that like for me to be able to sit in front of a computer and make all this analysis, I need some confidence in the data, because garbage in, garbage out. That's one of the rules that we have in GIS, that like garbage in, garbage out. If you put data that is crappy, you're gonna get crappy outputs. So there's a lot of attention or meticulous processing that has to go into understanding the data and okay, how do we clean it up for it to come out and for us to be able to make informed decisions. You know, it's very meticulous. So it can't always just be about okay, we have data, let's just process it. There's a lot of consideration that goes into data and having a nice polished output, you know. Because there's human errors, you know, that you need to account for, computer errors, all those things. You need to have some form of confidence in the data that you're giving out before you make decisions. You don't just, you imagine, for example, someone sitting behind their computer and then like, okay, today is 40 degrees, but you go outside and it's raining, it's 12 degrees. Those type of situations, you know, there's a lot of considerations that have to go. Updating data it's not a straightforward process.
I want to make it practical. So you guys, for example, do land monitoring on a place like Nandoni Dam, for example, right? So your efforts in a situation like that, how would you say you contribute to like the safety and sustainable environment for that community, but also the upkeep of that dam as well? How does your data help in that process? Does that question make sense?
It does. I'm actually laughing because I just submitted my master's.
So you're finally doing it?
I submitted my master's from the University of Pretoria 2 days ago.
Nice one.
And I was looking at land use classification in the areas around Nandoni Dam.
Yes.
more specifically because I'm from that area, so I understand the politics that have
Please
went.
tell us where you're from.
Oh yeah, we're all over the place. Eh?
We all know it's partial.
It's Spatial. We're being Spatial today.
Yeah.
We're
Please tell us
thinking
where you're from.
specially. I'm from Toyando.
Okay.
From Limpopo.
All right.
Grew up in Toyando, Makwarela. But the dam was constructed in the early 2000s, late 90s. And a lot of politics went into that dam construction. First of all, relocation. You can understand a lot of like environmental damage that happens. Relocation of people from their houses, and that's what I looked into in my honors. I was trying to understand the social impacts of the dam, like how has it affected people. But now for my masters that I just submitted, hopefully I get a pass for that. I was now trying to understand how has land cover changed over time based on the dam. And that's the core of what spatial data has to be like, or putting a satellite. It has to have real world benefits. And to answer your question, at the end of the day, no one wants to go to the field and spend months trying to say, okay, this is how much vegetation is still natural after the dam was constructed. This is how many people have moved in terms of like how many houses have been built. This is how much commercial land has changed in the area over time. So what I did for this master's, I was trying to understand how do we improve land cover classification, because that technique has been there for years, like probably over 30 years of trying to land cover classifications based on remote sensing. But now I was trying to, how do we improve that by deploying, maybe using optical imagery and synthetic aperture radar, which is two technologies that are remote sensing, but it's different data sets. How do we combine that to try to improve land cover classifications in an area like Nandani Dam, which is very rural, wherein there's a lot of more vegetation than buildings, and because a lot of these technologies are based in the northern side of the world, like the global North America, Europe, which are very advanced. But how do we make it African? How do we improve these techniques for rural communities? Like in South Africa, localized it, and in the sense of, okay, the dam has happened. There's a lot of politics that are happening there in the sense of like, okay, people are demanding land. The promises that have been made for the dam to be developed are not being kept, know. And that is a cause for concern in the sense of like, how is the land being managed in the region? Are we making policies that are influenced by data to bring about change in the region? So my master's was just trying to understand how do we improve land cover classifications in an area like that, and which land use types are changing the most. Is it vegetation? Is it commercial? Obviously, there's more water now. So obviously, how do we pick that up? How do we delineate that? How much land is now occupied by water? How much land now is occupied by vegetation compared to 20 years ago? So from there, that's when you may be able to make decisions that help the local communities, the rural, the people that are in those areas. Because a lot of people depend on firewood. A lot of people depend on maybe hunting. People depend on fishing, those type of things. So how much time do they still have? How much land is still available for them to be able to say, okay, I'm going to cook today. I need to go and get firewood, So those type of decisions have to be based on something like, it has to be based on data. Someone has to sit down and analyze how land cover has been changing in that area.
Tell me something.
And how do we improve that?
That kind of goes into my next question, that how do you then leverage like the geospatial information? Or rather, how can South Africa leverage geospatial information for more economic or rather environmental sustainability? How do they leverage that kind of information?
We, like all the departments, you have some form of GIS, like whether you're talking about the CSIR, like the Department of Environmental Affairs, every department has they do use GIS, Maybe it might be passively or actively, but they do actively use GIS. And I consider myself more of a generalist when it comes to the things that we do in GIS. But I do appreciate people that are very specific. There's people that are in environmental management that only focus on trying to understand the environment from a GIS perspective. There's people that are in the police force that are only focused on understanding crime and relating that to to an X and a Y, a locational aspect. So you find it everywhere. It's everywhere. GIS is everywhere. It's a new science. To be honest with you, it's you can even see by the way I'm speaking, because it's
so broad.
It's so broad.
It's so broad.
It's crazy.
There's so much in there.
There's so much in there, and there isn't a lot of awareness. And because you can even say, like, I'm also jittering right now because I'm just like, damn, what am I even talking about? What am I talking about? Because I'm all over the place. so because for instance, I was telling you about my masters, but a lot of that has been done before. Like the government already has land use, land cover classification for the whole country. They've already done a dashboard or a map for that. But now the core of what I was doing is trying to improve that. How can we make it more precise by using new data sets? Because I was using synthetic aperture radar, which is a form of data that was used in the military to track our enemies, to track. It was designed in World War, and it was never publicly accessible. It was okay, the US is flying a plane over us. Let's track it. Let's see. It was developed by the Germans. You see, like those type of data sets. But now I'm using it to bring about change in how we do things and how do we improve lives, So
that's awesome.
It's broad because last week I was actually at a space conference, for South Africa actually, for 3 days. And people from the military, they want to have a space command center now. They want to lobby from the government to have. How do we? We need to have an entity that helps us track what's going on from above, from a remote sensing point of view, whether it's GIS, whether it's even like how do we deter enemies? Like can we have weapons that are situated from space? Because imagine like no one wants to be driving to Zimbabwe if the border, if there's like war coming. You can just deter them by throwing a bomb from a satellite. So we're not going to get into that, but there's a lot of considerations. There's people that want to put data centers in space because it eliminates the environmental problem of having to use a lot of like environmental damage or water that goes into a data center. For example, Google, if they want to build a data center, it needs a lot of resources. But if you put it in space, it's cooled already. You don't need to cool those computers as much as you need to cool them.
You need to down here.
Yeah. So there's a lot. There's people that are looking into space weather.
Space weather.
Like it's a science.
I thought space was a void. It's just the sun.
It is. Space is broad, and I've considered myself like how should I put it? A space enthusiast. Like I love space, and I think my career in remote sensing it's much more on Earth observation, but it can be applied everywhere. There's people that are looking into the sun, like how is the sun affecting our satellites? Because the sun has outbursts of energies of rays of energy that could destroy our satellites, our GPSs and stuff like that.
I think it's radioactive waves.
Yeah. Remote sensing is based on that actually. It's based on the physics of each and everything on Earth has a specific signature. I know that like if I'm tracking water, it has to reflect this amount of energy. That's how you are able to remote sense. There's people that are able to, as I'm saying, like the sun, it's like there's people that they space weather to trying to send the sun in terms of like, okay, how are satellites being affected by the sun rays? And that affects me, you and I, because imagine like if all the satellites are off, you won't be able to track you where you are. Your GPSs will be off. For instance, Starlink. And a lot of people are Starlink, like Elon Musk, he wants Wi-Fi to come from space now, instead of like having wires to Starlink. Those type of things. So they need to be able to also track what are the potential damages that are going to come from the sun, or what are the data that are coming outside of Earth. But that is also a solution. You see, that's the core of what remote sensing is. How do we bring about I'm all over the place. I can even see I am.
No, it's all good. Like your topic is broad. Like
it's so broad because
crazy.
You see, like Elon Musk, for instance, he's a billionaire, but all his efforts now most of his efforts now are trying to make things more efficient. Whether we're talking about Tesla, those cars are using spatial awareness. They're using cameras to understand, okay, how far am I from the next car? He doesn't believe in LiDAR, which is light detection and ranging, but he believes in cameras at the moment. Okay, how far are things? Like, How can we have self-driving cars? That requires an X and a Y. That requires spatial awareness. It requires spatial thinking. The car has to be able to think. The algorithm has to be able to understand, okay, I can't drive too fast because I'm going to hit the next car, which is at this location. And is other companies, Starlink, as I'm saying, Wi-Fi. We have fiber that is running on the ground, but how do we bring fiber to the most remote areas? How do we bring fiber to Nandoni Dam? It's going to require a satellite like Starlink, what it's doing now, running all this.
I have a question though. Sorry, after that.
Yeah, running all this satellites to bring us Wi-Fi in the most remote of areas, like without having to have a fiber person going and connect those things. I know we don't have Starlink South Africa, but that's another question. And he's also developing a lot of like rockets. How do we take it to space? How do we evolve the human race in terms of like, how do we get to Mars? Those kind of questions. And when you get to Mars, you also need to understand the surface, which is remote sensing, what's the GIS, where are things on Mars? So it's broader than just looking at it from an earthly point of view, because yeah, it's broad. It's so broad.
I'm seeing a duality as you're talking now, right? There is a techno-savvy side where we're advancing, we're going this direction of human development and human evolution, right?
Yeah.
But there's still an element of like ethical considerations that are we going too far? Will this hinder people in some form or the other? So where is the balance in that? Like, okay, the more we are expanding spatially to, to advance, what are the ethical like considerations you have to keep in mind? Like you mentioned Elon Musk a lot, and there are some, pushback. There is some pushback he gets as well with his ideas. So where is the balance for you in that regard?
Yeah, it's the key thing when it comes to Earth observation or this type of technology, it's always privacy. That's why you find maybe if you go on Google Earth and Google Maps or whatever, you want Street View, you will have the cars that have dashed out
the licenses,
or even a face of a person in the street. It will be blurred out.
You hide them, yes.
So yeah, it's the more we know, because obviously now we are sensing everything. We can see things, but we also need to, as you're saying, we need to have an ethical consideration of like, how do we still maintain the respect, and how do we also become ethical? It's crazy because like it dives into AI as well, because how do we maintain thinking like humans? How far can we take AI, and are we still able to think, for ourselves?
Yeah.
But when you look at it into the sense of like how at the end of the day,
yes,
evolution is uncomfortable. And evolution is uncomfortable. It's better to try than and fail instead of just not trying at all. And if where we want to go as the human race, or where we want to go with science, it's going to require uncomfortable conversations. It's going to require a lot of, it's crazy.
Some focused decision making as well.
It's crazy because like even when you talk about AI, for instance, there aren't any laws to govern that as yet, yes. And it's advancing crazily. It's everywhere.
Now I want to talk about spatial data and how it pertains to you as a person. Now we're narrowing it down.
Yeah.
What's a normal day like for you? Like you wake up, go to work. What does that look like for you? What's a normal day?
What's a normal day for me?
Yeah.
Currently, I'm working for a consulting company.
Yeah.
Engineering consulting. So I'm part of the digital advisory unit. So a lot of what we do there is enablement for the business. How do we transform the company using digital practices? Whether it's flying drones over a construction site, because you can understand, I'm in engineering fraternity right now. They need to understand, okay, we're building a road. Let's try to understand how long it's going to be, which material is needed. Let's understand like the soil. How far do we have to? Those type of questions. For instance, we do a lot of things. Like, it's crazy. This question, like, to be honest, I don't even know how to answer that question.
That's okay.
No, to be honest, I don't know how to answer that question. But yeah, just understand. Okay, the easiest way to explain it would just be like, I'm in the digital field, and a lot of what we do there is, using spatial data to make informed decisions, and how do we, and bringing in technologies that are tied to digital practices. For instance, if we have someone who's going to survey a road somewhere in the Northern Cape or across the province, Central, for instance, they need a tool to be able to point, okay, there's a pothole there, it's this big. We can create a survey form for them that is enabled with also collecting an X and a Y, or a location of where the pothole is. And then from our side, when someone is in the field, we are able to take that data. As they are putting the data in, we're able to now start making like dashboards. We are able to make like a viewer of understanding, okay, this is the road that was surveyed, this is the person who surveyed it, this is a pothole, those kind of questions. I've worked in very interesting projects. I've worked in projects in Dubai, for instance, where they were building apartments, and they needed that information to be transformed from like BEAM, from an engineering point of view. But how do we make it spatial? So we are moving from one format of data to a GIS format. And then from there, how do we create a viewer for a client? Because the CEO doesn't want to see an Excel file. Like, they don't care about seeing an Excel file. You're just showing them rows and columns. You want to make it as simple as possible for the viewer to see, and that requires a dashboard. It requires a map. Like, oh yeah, this is how the building is going to look.
Yes.
This is how many aspects of the building that we still need to track. I've worked in projects where we had to track telescopes. Like, I don't know if you know SKAO, like those in the Northern Cape. So it's called the Square Kilometer Array.
Yeah.
They are developing telescopes for human advancement. It's science, to understand, are we alone in the universe? Like those type of questions. And that's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Like, so we were kind of responsible of trying to understand, okay, you are building the telescopes now, but how do we track the progress of, okay, who's doing what? How far are we in this project? And that requires spatial data, right? Of understanding, okay, there's this telescope, it's in this location, the foundation has been dug, there's still this much progress to go. So that kind of thinking is what I'm involved in at work. How can we make our business as efficient as possible?
Sure.
And how can we transform the business of, like, we don't want to be filling a form. Like, the most simple example that I can give you would be for reception actually at work, where I had to do a form for them to, when a visitor comes, to understand, okay, you're going to this person, put in your information, take a picture. What are you coming here to do? Where are you going? What is the capacity of the building? How many people are in the building? So that kind of information can be it's spatial information, right? How many people are in the building, in this building? Do we have enough desks to accommodate these people? Who are they coming to visit? It's also for security purposes. And like, there's not really much of a it's not deep, but it's a core understanding of just trying to understand data in that aspect. How can we streamline data efficiently? So the way I work, or the way we work, it moved from just, okay, locational data or whatever, but that's the core of what we do. But there's so much. I can
imagine. Well, actually, I can see right now.
It's crazy. It's honestly, it's very interesting.
So
yeah,
you've achieved a lot, you personally. I hear about your like strides and achievements, and your degree to your honors, and now recently submitting your master's. Congrats.
Hopefully I pass that.
Oh, okay. Now we're holding thumbs for that, definitely.
Yeah.
In this broad field, and maybe for someone else who's interested in coming into this space as well, what challenges did you experience, and what challenges are there right now, currently, in this field that you're in right now?
I think the challenge I've managed to portray today. What do we actually do? Because we're everywhere.
We need a follow-up interview. Actually, we need a follow-up on that.
Yeah, I think I've managed to conceptualize that properly in this interview.
You did.
What do we actually do? Because there's so much,
There is a lot.
I was having a conversation with an Indian who's been in the field for decades.
Yeah.
And then he was like, bruh, to be honest, I didn't know about JS since like 2 years ago. And I'm like, and then his life, now he's using the technology because it just helps him. So the challenges, the challenges that we have in the industry would be that, and at the end of the day, I believe like in whatever you do, there has to be there has to be like a consideration for impact.
Yes.
Can't always just be about, okay, why are we putting a satellite into space? Why are we wasting so much resources when we can solve crime? Like the public won't understand how, as a taxpayer, I wouldn't understand why we're putting a satellite into space if there's no benefit to me. If it's not helping me in any way, why are we wasting so much money on trying to understand how the sun is affecting our GPSs or understanding weather? Like so they always, it's in whatever field you are in. I think the most challenging thing is how are we progressing, or how we bring impact to our communities.
Yeah.
For instance, my masters, how we bring instance to the people that are, a lot of corruption have happened into that dam construction. A lot of promises have happened into people being promised houses, people being promised like a better life based on that dam. Like how, and the problem that I was faced with was like, when I did that research, it was just like, how can I use all this expertise that I might have acquired to try to understand that problem? Because you see, like, you need to be comfortable with doing things that no one has done before. You need to be comfortable with doing things scared. As I'm saying, you can see that like I submitted a master, but I'm not even sure if I'm going to pass it because I don't know if they're going to understand where my point of view. Like, okay, this is the problem, and this is how we are solving it in a spatial way, in a geospatial way, or in a remote sensing way, or using AI. So that's how you just have to understand it. ChatGPT or whatever, you need to understand. Okay, how are we solving our everyday situation problems? How are we solving crimes? And you need to think like that. And I think over my life, I've had to condition myself to think spatially, to think geographically.
What does that mean?
It means essentially thinking spatially, geospatially. Where are you located? Where are you? What's happening around you? What's happening there? There's a law in geography, is in physics or in science. There's like Newton first.
Yeah, the laws of physics.
Yeah, we also have a law in geography called Tobler's first law. It says like everything is related, but near things are more related than distant things. So
I love that.
Understanding relationships, like, but spatially, something is like, and because it's a complex thing. It's a complex.
No, understood.
It's a complex, but it's not complicated. I think
and it's inherent as well.
It's inherent. I think it's not complicated. It's just complex. It's complex problems.
I kind of have an idea like where the future for you might be, but in this craft, where do you think is the future for spatial and spatial data and remote sensing?
The future, I think it's definitely trying to have models that are fully computerized, having the world fully computerized, like digital twins. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term digital twins, where we're bringing like information from engineers, from GIS perspectives, from remote sensing, and being able to make informed decision from a computer. Okay, for instance, if we have data from the Department of Water for their pipes or rent water or whatever, and we have broad information, we have all this information in the world, and we are not existing in silos anymore. Because the problem now is like everyone is doing their own thing. Let's bring that together and understand. Okay, I'm sitting in front of a computer as a GIS analyst. There's a outburst in this location. The pipe is best. The sensors in the pipe. I can see where it is. I can now. How do we respond to that quickly and then go and get that fixed? Okay, there's crime in this area. Midrand, there's a lot of hijackings. How do we deploy more police there? And being able to not just put roadblocks everywhere, how do we put them in specific areas, like in an area that we know that? So I think at the end of the day, the future of this is just, the core of this is just embedded in how do we make more efficient and more calculated decisions in whatever we do. That's why. And how do we make things efficient? Like no one wants to be fixing fiber. Like imagine like we're trying to put fiber in every single place, because Africa still has a lot of problems. Like we don't have access to internet, and that's crazy. Like less than 50% of people don't have access to information technology. That's why you have Elon Musk flying all these Wi-Fi satellites or Starlink into space, because even in the most remote areas, you deserve access to information, you know? So yeah, and I would love for this field to exist in a way that it is governed by our own ideas as Africans, you know, because the Europeans are doing like imagine now I submitted a master's and I was using data from NASA, data from ESA, European Space Agency, but how can we make our own technologies that are capable of making us make more informed decisions? Because what if NASA decides one day that, okay, we're not giving you our data anymore, this data is now, because they started giving us that data like less than 20 years ago, and they've had that data for more than 50 years. So what if they wake up and they'll be like, oh, actually we're cutting ties. We're not giving this data anymore out. So I think the future that I want to exist in this field would be where we have our own satellites. You know, we have our own synthetic aperture radar satellites to track enemies, to track ships that are foreign that are fishing in our coasts, to track floods. Because at the end of the day, if a flood happens, you can't do that using basic remote sensing. You need a satellite like synthetic aperture radar, which is able to penetrate the clouds and see the ground. Because imagine like if you're pointing a camera down, you won't be able to see the ground because there's clouds. So we need better technologies to be able to, okay, let's have that use different wavelengths to penetrate the clouds and see, okay, this is the extent of the damage. How can we make informed? How can we go there and help in an instance, instead of depending on foreign entities? Like
foreign insights as well.
Yeah, let's get to a place, because we have the expertise. You know, we have the academia side of things. We are capable. We are capable, and I think let's solve African problems
using African mindset,
using African solutions,
and
African expertise. You know, I can't expect someone from the USA to come and crack down land cover classification number. They don't care about that. So it's just one of those things where it's broad. It's very broad. It's broad.
It's a broad thing.
But let's have African solutions. There's a lot
to cover.
There's a lot.
But can you sum up can you summon the insight right now to give us like your last words? I think important last words you can give to someone out there.
I don't know who told me this, but I was told once that when you do something that you love, you never have to work a day in your life.
True.
And I don't feel like I'm working. I don't go to work and feel like, I have to work. I mean, there's days where it's hard. It's work, obviously. But I ground myself by understanding that, bruh, I love what I do. I love what I do. And I'm passionate about the science of where, of knowing where things are. Because in the cosmic grand of things, like, this now is going to get philosophical.
No, please go for it. We love that.
In the cosmic grand of things, like we are just a speck in the universe. We're just a tiny blue dot in a vast sea of endless possibilities of the universe. This ties into astrophysics and stuff like that. But when we're only limited right now by our science, but we are good enough to start exploring why are we here? Why are things happening in this small speck, in this small blue dot we call Earth? How are things happening there? And for me, that has always been interesting, and that's why I think all this, the trajectory of my career, from trying to be a geologist, trying to be an environmental scientist, trying to go to botany, it was all tied down in just trying to understand where things are happening, and the science of where.
I think what's poetic is
Yeah.
the one thing that has been resounding for me is the interconnected nature of everything. And you mentioned one of the laws of geography or geology is that everything is connected, but the two closest points are more connected.
Yeah.
And I feel that's indicative of your journey as well, how you've gotten to this point. Your most recent accomplishment led to you then next milestone and which is, I think, awesome, man.
Yeah. It's also like in life you shouldn't be comfortable with just being satisfied. You need to move out of your comfort zone always.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is just like let's know more. You know, let's know more. I don't know if this is a off topic, but it's still part of the broader discussion that we're having now. I think I really think of things holistically more than.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah, I have to. It's my job. But yeah, I don't know if you watched the 3-Body Problem on Netflix.
I heard about it. I haven't watched it yet.
So they are saying there is we have managed to communicate with a distant civilization in the Alpha Centauri constellation. It's
another galaxy.
It's another galaxy.
Sure.
Not galaxy, but let's just call it like another planet, a solar system, for instance. And it's unstable because they've like the 3-body problem is like, okay, there's a sun, 2 suns, and a planet. So it's chaotic. You can't predict what's going to happen next. So they need to evacuate the planet, you know? And on Earth, our system is stable. It's just the sun and planets, you know? There's not another sun. Our things are stable, you know? And they're trying to come to Earth, and we don't know what's going to happen.
Oh.
You know? That's the whole point of the 3-body problem of like, okay, we have a very stable solar system on Earth. But the problem now is that like on Earth, our science is not that good compared to theirs. They've advanced. So it's going to take them 400 years to come here. And in that 400 years,
we need to advance.
We would have been so advanced. If you look at what happened between like the 1900s to now, like, come on.
Yeah,
we have done insane things. We have advanced insanely. We've gone to the moon. Those type of things. So they are scared. They are also scared that like, these people are advancing. And that's where we come in as scientists, like in the grander scheme of things, I'm bringing to life now that like a problem like that, they have the fear that we're advancing as the human race, you know? And that's where someone like me or someone like you, what you guys are doing, someone from Apple, someone from Meta, someone from OpenAI comes into play. How do we advance the human race? How do we become more efficient? How do we progress as the human race? How do we solve our crime problem? How do we solve our environmental problem? How do we solve global warming? How do we, which is a very dark question, but how do we have advanced weaponry for aliens coming from the Alpha Centauri galaxy? Because we don't know when they come in, what are they going to do?
Yes.
Those type of things. So, and they're scared of that because like, they're observing and it's like, bruh, these people, they've achieved so much in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And that's where an average person from Limpopo comes into play. How do we advance? How do you advance the human race? You know, it's all about advancing us. And when you look at things in that perspective, you realize that like you can't be satisfied with the norm. If you want to change, if you want any kind of change, you can't just be satisfied with how things are happening. Yes, you can't just be like, South Africa has the highest crime rate in the world, you know, highest unemployment. Then what? What is the solution? What is the solution to those problems, you know? And that's where young minds come into play, you know? That's where people, because we understand the problem, because we're living in the society. How do we solve our problems? Yeah, at the end of the day, it's just about let's advance the human race. Let's become a better society.
Man, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was a lot of like jewels you gave us. A lot of quotables right there. Mm-hmm. And guys, so sorry, do you have any last words, sir?
No, I don't. I think I said a mouthful. I'm still trying to think like, okay, did I even...
I'm actually still processing as well. So I'm a bit like,
I'm also processing. I'm just thinking of like, but I was all over the place. Like, I just talked about everything, but yeah, again, the core of everything is just like, okay, the science of where, you know, just know where you are.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And there you have it, guys. Another installment of WARMKOP, each one teach one. Look, there are a lot of things that were said, and I can imagine you guys also have questions. So please comment there, give us your questions. We'll be sure to share with the gentleman,
Yeah.
and we'll get back to you. If there's any questions, by all means, send it to us. But there you have it, guys. Each one teach one. It's your boy Seppa from there. My good sir Batch, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
I have a lot of questions I'm still going to ask him after this.
Thank you for the platform.
Thank you for your time,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you. And guys, we'll be in touch, yeah? Peace.
Yeah.
WARMKOP.